Okay, we would like to open our discussion now, and including people in this room, people in the next room, and 35 participants online. And so anybody would like to ask questions first?
I have questions for two different speakers, two different questions.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
For Michael and for Helman. First, for Michael. So when we're talking about the Anthropocene, I'm constantly thinking about Ed Young's "I Contain Multitudes," the microbiome within us, I think is the subtitle of the book. And in it, he claims that we're not in the Anthropocene. We never have been and we never will be, and that we're in the microbiocene because it is microbes that control absolutely everything. And I don't want to put that forward as a thesis because it sort of disrupts what we're talking about, Anthropocene. But I do want to ask, when you started talking about, toward the end of your talk, you started talking about undergrowth, which really interested me because it looked all slimy and green. And I just wonder about slime and greenery, and in particular, the microbial world in art. Do you find any megafaunaizing of the microbiocene, any valorizing of the microbiocene?
That's an excellent question. I do think that artists like Pierre Wieck are really interesting in that respect, and there are others, I guess, that that sort of belong to that wider field. So there's another sort of British German artist called Indian British German artist called Tino Sehgal, who sort of does a lot of performative work that usually works with human performers, but is also interested in sort of creating these systems. So what I find in these artworks, so that's a long way around to hopefully the answer, is that plants or microbes or anything sort of are mainly there as sort of chance operators in a way to take away from human agency, right? So performance is something that is not scripted, but is something that happens in the moment, is used to take away from a human narrative center. And so the microbes there, like let's say in that context, are obviously something that produces things and that performs in a way, but it's not readable or not immediately readable. And yeah, so I think it is there, but it is not, it is not there to tell a story.
Right, that not readability is at the core of affect. And
yes, exactly. Yeah.
So that's sort of why
and yes, exactly. So that's sort of why I thought with Wieck is an example for this idea of affectivity as creating a situation, as it were. But what I mean is there's a continuum between creating that situation as something that a spectator might encounter and creating other kinds of affective encounters that could be sort of not based on an encounter with the microbe, biocene, but an encounter with another human, let's say. So that is what I mean, like where these artists like Sehgal, Wieck, Areino, there's others, especially I think in the French conceptual scene, it's, and that's not a criticism, right? But there is something troubling there to me, I think, if it becomes replaceable to a certain extent, whether you work with animals or you work or non-human animals, or do you work with microbes, or do you work with plants, or do you work with humans, etc. Because you always do the same. You create, or machines for that matter, you create an environment in which something happens that cannot be controlled. And that's interesting, but at the same time, maybe takes away from a discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, that sort of mentioned it. The other question is for Helman. When you started talking about shit and stuff, I was curious about sort of theorizing disgust and how that works in with xenophobia and speciesism and ecophobia and that kind of thing. And I wonder if you've given thoughts about disgust, any I mean, the topic of disgust, any thought. as a sort of theoretical issue. I mean, it's something that Jean-Paul Sartre talks about a little bit when he talks about slime, and he's got this great line, slime is the agony of water. And it's always so much a part of disgust and horror, and the the eco-gothic and eco-horror and that kind of thing. But shit, more so. So I wonder if you thought about it.
Yeah, that's a really a great question. To be frank, I've not thought along that line, but this is clearly a good point to make. But for me, I think that there's a lot to make in this case because for me, this kind of a disgust is a very pretty simple idea because things are not by themselves disgusting. It's just like disgusting is a very a projection of human emotion of having things. So I mean, slime is not disgusting by itself, but we feel that it's disgusting.
Right. Well, and something like slime is not always disgusting. I mean, sometimes it's treasured and valued, like
Right,
in the bedroom during sex, for instance. And children play with slime. I mean, there's a huge market for slime, but it can also change very quickly, like in the bedroom. And certain kinds of slime on food is, whereas other kinds of slime on food.
Right. So I mean, it's kind
But
of
shit is universal. I mean, I've read studies. I've read studies about this, that there's a universal downward movement of the mouth when it comes toward, if you get it on a plate and you get a fork or a pair of chopsticks in front of you, oh yeah, and that's universal. Unlike slime.
But animal dung is
Right.
Yeah.
right.
The fertilizers. Very useful.
Chinese peasants don't imagine. So I mean, should be contextualized.
Yeah, true.
Contested culture. So I mean, in many cases in Chinese culture, this is a good fertilizer.
Yeah, that's true.
And why human feces is disgusting or animal dung?
But I mean, as food, for instance, animal. I mean, it's not. Is it good? I mean, for people.
Some animals eat grass.
Not exactly to eat, but to cook.
Yeah.
It is associated with food in some way.
Mm.
Well, it brings to my mind, Mary Douglas' book on waste. So it just depends on the place and how you situate certain things to make it to project it as saying it's disgusting.
Can I make a quick observation?
Yes, you have 1 minute.
Fiona, are you familiar with the Leaf polar bear commercial?
Actually, this is a very beginning part of my project. So yeah, I would like to know more about that.
It's 1 minute. I can show it to you. It's brilliant. It's a
And
It
the
just-
online audience.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Turn on here.
Maybe you
Here's
can,
the camera.
second.
If you use
Okay.
it,
Okay.
Yeah.
It is YouTube. Yeah.
okay.
That's another question.
Sorry. There's a phone on this.
Actually, I have one additional point about visas. So in addition to the context in which we understand visas in terms of culture, I was thinking about the situations in which visas are created. Like, of course, fertilizers are used as from visas, and yet I was thinking about another kind of affective situations like fear. I think animals will like go into having sports when they are in fear, in extreme fear. When animals are in abuse, they would be like peeing and cooing.
Human
Pumping.
beings.
Yeah, human also. All mammals will do so.
Fear and visas could be also in connections. Oh, this is it.
Ready?
Oh, the next one. Yeah, I know which one.
You have seen it, right?
Yeah.
Introducing the 100% electric Nissan Leaf. Innovation for the planet. Innovation for all.
Oh,
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
critical.
I think it adds on to the kind of like problematic that I don't know how to tackle with this pullback as an image or how it's being used.
Yeah.
All kinds of irony like air conditioning and so on.
Okay, then,
Can I
you have,
really add
yes,
something?
one more comment.
So Michael, do you want to just briefly explain the last artwork you didn't have time to explain? The digital flower in the forest. And then
Yeah, I don't know if we actually have time, but like very quickly, it's an artist called Abbas Akavan, and it's a sort of video installation that is situated in a greenhouse. So there's, you know, like actual living flowers there, and he uses a living flower on the video, which is sometimes called a snapdragon, because if you sort of put it between your fingers, it becomes like the face of a dragon, and it becomes like a mouth that talks. So he uses this like almost like a puppet, and then there are subtitles, but the plant is not actually speaking. You don't hear a voice or anything like that, but you just read the subtitles of a sort of disaster narrative. And so for me, that was quite interesting, even though very clearly the plant is manipulated without consent. It's being used, but there is something about this, and it was in another talk this afternoon, I don't know who of you it was, but who talked about anthropomorphic exaggeration. Oh, that was you. And so that is exactly what is happening there. And I think there is an overinvestment in this anthropomorphic exaggeration so that it becomes critical practice. Like that's a very short summary, but sort of, so I saw that as a slightly different approach from the others, because it actually uses plants in a very demeaning way, if you will, but maybe does so in order to criticize sort of certain narratives.
you read either way.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Okay, time is 4:04. And that gives us 60 minutes for the coffee, but then we have one question from online, from Zoom, Eileen Chan, about Plastic China. I don't know if Emily would like to answer that, or we.
Can you read the question?
Yeah.
We couldn't really see.
Thank you very much for your inspiring speech. With reference to your discourse on eco-comic storytelling, I hope to ask how you would receive the contribution of direct cinema like Plastic China, which is a documentary that creates a powerful parodic function that critique a range of social cultural issues of environmental humanity. So the question is, what kind of generic practices should be seen as the best anthropocenic?
Well, that's really
It's a big question.
Yeah,
right?
it's a big question.
Yeah, you still want to have coffee or?
Maybe we can talk later. Elena, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
question.
Elena.